Hey everyone, welcome back to our second episode of Thought Junkies with Johnny White.
Beth White.
Hello. And as usual, our special guest,
Quagmire.
And Quagmire.
Oh no, screw Quagmire.
We've got Happy McPinkerton, the shut the fuck up ball.
Mr. Happy McPinkerton.
I do apologize. He's
Steinberg.
He's got a position.
He's like a new baby. We're still trying to name him.
Yeah,
figure out the white one. It might change next week. Who knows?
So we've got a subject this week. We were going to be start off talking about lucid dreams. Anyway, it's definitely something that Johnny and I both deal with on a regular basis. So yeah, Johnny, start us off.
Yeah. So just in case there are those of you out there that don't know what lucid dreaming is, lucid dreaming is where you have a dream and you're realizing that you're dreaming and you don't let it shock you enough to wake you up out of your dream, but you can kind of take control and control yourself or certain events while you're dreaming. Literally, you can do anything.
I would say that to a certain extent. Lucid dreaming, for me, the definition of it would be basically a dream that just feels real. I think it takes a while, and it takes kind of the wanting to harness it to be able to understand that it is a dream while you're dreaming. I know that there have been some theories floating around on ways of how to find out that you're dreaming while it's happening. Some people picture like a little red ball in their dream, and if they see that little red ball, then they understand that they are in fact dreaming and are therefore able to take control of the situation and try and direct the dream in a way that they want it to go. I know when I'm lucid dreaming, I am often, because I have them just so frequently that I'm usually just aware of it. I don't need a little red ball. I can kind of go, okay, most of the time. I can kind of go, okay, this is not reality. That's not something that happens in everyday life. We should probably do something about this.
I agree on certain things that you said, but I do believe that lucid dreaming is being able to, it's to become conscious while you're sleeping, which is usually an unconscious type of thing, which is why lucid dreaming is so rare. You're literally paralyzed while you're sleeping. Because I dream pretty much every night, and I have for a long time, and that's why I've learned this skill of lucid dreaming, because all my dreams seem very real to me. They seem very vivid, but I wouldn't call all of them lucid dreaming because sometimes I don't take the reins, and usually dreams are just something that we watch. So just on that note, I would disagree that I think the definition of lucid dreaming is one where you have taken control of your dream. Would you agree?
I actually wouldn't necessarily agree with that. Maybe it's a bit of an idealistic perspective. Maybe everybody has a slightly different definition of what a lucid dream is. Because I know that when I first started having lucid dreams when I was quite young, I think I remember my first one was that basically I was standing in like a really old western ghost town.
Cool.
Yeah, and I'd be walking through it, and there would be tumbleweeds blowing by, and they'd be blowing by at very drastically different volumes and sizes. And it was all kind of varied as the tumbleweeds blew by, and it was actually quite scary for me because I was about 5 or 6 at the time when they started happening, and it was just like I didn't really understand what was happening, and these tumbleweeds were blowing by, and it was just kind of scary, the volume and the sound, and it sounded so real in my head, and it was just so loud, some of them, and then some of them were really quiet, and then there's that anticipation of what's going to happen next, like which one is going to go by next and what kind of volume is it going to be. And then I would walk through this ghost town, and I would end up just kind of staring at this really run down shack, just completely deserted, completely broken down, everything's completely dusty, and these tumbleweeds would be blowing by, and that was the dream, and I would wake up. And it would happen frequently, the same dream over and over again. And it was a lucid dream.
So that's what lucid means to you, is vivid and reoccurring?
I wouldn't necessarily say reoccurring. That's not necessarily lucid, but it felt like I was actually there every time. It felt, even though after you have it a few times, I became aware that I wasn't there and it was in fact a dream, I always felt like I was there even before I made that realization. And that's what I felt lucid was. And because I had that dream so frequently, and I had a few others that kept coming up, I began to learn how to control it, and I began to learn while I was sleeping to understand that I was sleeping and that I was dreaming, and take control that way, but it was always lucid to me.
Well, yeah, I know we have different definitions and maybe should Google it, but lucidity to me implies control of yourself, just in my view. But let's just take your definition by sake of argument. And you have a lucid dream. My question or questions are, have you had a lucid dream recently, and how do you feel immediately after you wake up from a lucid dream?
It's a very good question. Yes, I have lucid dreams all the time. They often happen when I'm stressed out, so I had one probably a few nights ago. And I would say I woke up a little bit confused. It was a bit of a weird dream. Anyone that keeps up with my Facebook, I did actually post this as a Facebook status the other day, but basically I was in a play, and I knew what play I was in, and I was very, very convinced of what character that I had to play despite all evidence.
I remember.
And while this is all happening, I'm completely aware that I'm dreaming. So I was convinced that I was playing the Joker from Batman. And
in a play.
In a play. That made no sense. Because this play was like, it was kind of like a game show, and I didn't recognize any of the other characters except all of my minions dressed in the old classic jail suits with like the black and white pinstripes, and my face was completely painted white, and I had like black lines going here, and it was definitely done on purpose, and like around my eyes were black. And it was very dramatic, and I was just like, I'm the Joker. There was no evidence to this at all.
The Heath Ledger version.
Exactly. The Heath Ledger version, except not. Like, the personality of Heath Ledger with zero budget, basically. And I knew that I didn't know my lines, and I also knew that I was dreaming. So in my dream, I said, okay, logically, check the script. So I checked the script, and I tried to find my lines, and I found my scene, and I'm reading all of the lines, and I'm going, who are these characters? They can't find the Joker anywhere. And I couldn't find my lines. And I went on stage, and like I could feel the energy of the audience, and I could feel that the audience knew that I didn't know my lines. So I just started making them up, and I ended up quoting a few of the paragraphs from the Joker, like his "Do I look like a guy with a plan?" and his
terrible impersonation, by the way.
Oh, absolutely, and and his one about chaos, and how when everything is planned, people are completely okay with it, but when something slightly out of the ordinary happens, everybody loses their minds, and then it shifted into something else, and I was in control the entire time, but there was a certain level of, I knew what was going to happen, but at the same time I couldn't predict it, which doesn't make any sense, but it was just the feeling that I had. So I woke up, And I was, to answer your question, very confused. I spent probably a good 30 minutes sitting there going, I wonder what that dream meant, and trying to analyze it, and to this day I have no idea.
Yeah, well, I think dreams are simply a manifestation of your current level of consciousness and just things that you think about. They say that when you're dreaming, you cannot imagine a new face because it's your brain working by itself unconsciously.
I've heard that theory, yeah.
So, one of the things that I cannot do while I'm lucid dreaming is read. I try to read, and there's no words there. I can't. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'm not that far into it yet, and not good at it. But that's one of the things that
I've heard that that's actually a very common thing in dreams. There are two things that I'm aware of that are very common that people generally cannot do in dreams. One of them is read, and the other one is die. You cannot die in your own dream. You always wake up before you die, and you can never read anything. I mean, even in my dream, when I was reading the script, I was looking at the page, and I could see that there were letters, and I could see that there were words, and I knew that I was reading it. But logically speaking, the words weren't actually there. It was just kind of a knowledge that I had in my head that I was reading and that the words were there, if that makes sense.
So you could read, but like, could you
formulate
the words into letters? Because for me, it's just a blurry type of thing, and then sometimes it even wakes me up too. If I try and read it, and then that's like a big kicker that your brain kind of, I'm not sure what happens, but it wakes me out of sleep sometimes if I try hard enough to read, but I can never do it.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
No, that's exactly it. It does come across as blur, and I guess what I was trying to say was that me as a person in my mental state, watching and feeling this dream, is that I knew what was happening. I knew what was supposed to be happening. So it was as if I was watching myself reading it, even though I couldn't actually read it. But I was still there. It was like I was...
You're watching yourself read it. And earlier you were describing what your makeup looked like. Did you look in a mirror, or when you dream, do you see yourself in third person sometimes?
Yes, sometimes. It goes back and forth. My brain doesn't really hold to one point of view when I'm dreaming. It never really sticks just to first person or just to third person. It goes back and forth, and it often actually always shifts into a different scenario and a different scene all the time. It never just stays as just one thing. So, I mean, after this play happened, I ended up working in a 7-Eleven, and this guy came in and started, like, flirting with me, and he ordered a drink of soy sauce and 7-Up, and he's talking about how much he loves this drink, and he's, like, trying to flirt with me. And I was like, yeah,
it's
sure.
really specific.
I know!
Soy sauce and 7-Up.
My brain is
There's
weird.
something about your brain that you're going to try that combination before you die.
Going back to your previous question of how I felt when I woke up, there was a part of my brain that kind of wanted to try it. Just to see what it tasted like, and I might still do that.
Coupled with a sense of confusion, like, where did that come from?
Exactly. And anyway, we were, like, kind of flirting and stuff, and it got to the point where I was like, are you seeing anybody? And he made it off to say something along the lines of, like, several someones, and then he kind of, like, shifted it a little, and he takes a sip of his drink, which we all know is going to be awful. It's soy sauce and 7-Up, right? He takes a sip of it, and he makes this face that's obviously very deliberate, and he goes, that's weird, my taste has changed. That only happens when someone's about to ask me out. And then he looks at me really suggestively, and I go, no. And I walk away, and I wake up. Which really explains the confusion. Honestly, the most troubling part of that dream was the last bit.
Yeah, like, I didn't think I would be able to come up with a pickup line that lame.
You haven't heard what I've heard.
That's true. It's just, it's very specific, it's very odd. It's a terrible way to ask someone out. Don't order that, you know, I mean, okay, I guess we have to try it because, you know, you never know until you try. You gotta keep an open mind.
Of course.
Yeah. And, I don't have any 7-Up right now. Sorry.
We will have to save that for another day. We might as well try it on a Thought Junkies episode. Why not? But, okay, so I guess something that I find when I'm dreaming is that I can often, I don't know, my brain does something very, very strange when I understand that I'm dreaming. It's almost like I want to follow the dream through to the end and see how it ends. So I come across multiple occasions in my dream where I could wake up, and I refuse to do it. And sometimes I do wake up, but I don't allow myself to fully wake up before I push myself back into sleep and try and pick up the dream where I left off. Do you ever get anything like that?
Yes, that has happened to me many times. The weird thing about that, though, is sometimes it's similar but not the same. So there's kind of this dream overlap effect. And you know, you enter the dream and, oh, this is new and I'm kind of here now and that kind of thing. I did, for the first time, I was napping this afternoon actually, and I started dreaming, and then I felt like I woke up, but it was just me in my dream waking up. And so I woke up, and then I'm going through the dream, and then suddenly I realized I'm still dreaming. And so it became like two dreams. There was a thing that was happening before I went to bed, I woke up, and then now there's this, and it was just this crazy, because it happened at least 3, 4, maybe 5 different times where I thought I was awake. I know!
Was there a crazy plot line?
Sometimes it's hard to remember. But, yeah, for example, I dreamt that I was hanging out with my friend Mikey, and he came over to my place, and we played video games, and then I dreamt that he left, and then I dreamt that I woke up the next day, and he forgot his glasses, and they were sitting on my bedside table. And so, okay, and then, you know, get up and try and find my phone and let him know, and then, oh, I'm still dreaming. And then wake up the next day again in my dream, and whoa, I'm still dreaming. I can't actually wake up. It's like you wake up still inside the dream. And in my dream, I'm like someone needs to wake me up, because this is happening over and over again, and it's getting really confusing and a little bit scary. It was like a lot to take. I felt like I was awake for a week.
Yeah.
It was really, really strange, and that's, I have lucid dreams, according to my definition about being able to control yourself inside of a dream, but I have never had anything like that happen to me in my life. It's one of the weirdest, strangest things that ever happened to me. And when I finally woke up for real, I'm like, no, I'm still dreaming, aren't I? It was the strangest thing. And going back to your thing about Inception, in the movie, I don't know if you guys have ever seen it, but in the movie, it's about entering other people's dreams, but you carry a little keepsake with you, that as long as, when you're holding it, you know you're awake. And I totally had one of those. And it was from a container of juice, you know, that you open the cap and there's that thing you gotta pull off.
Yeah.
That little white thing. It was that.
I love Tropicana.
Yeah, shout out to Tropicana. But yeah, so
No, we're not sponsored.
No, we are not. So yeah, it was just so strange and so bizarre. And the weird thing was I kept asking my friend to wake me up inside the dream. I thought I was awake, and then one of the things I could tell I was still dreaming. You ever get that thing where you can't walk, or you're walking funny, like you're trying to walk underwater or run underwater? Yeah, so that's kind of like, oh, I'm still dreaming.
Yeah.
So I would go to her inside my dream and say, you have to wake me up. You have to wake me up. And I did it over and over and over again. And then the last time I did it, I said, apparently in my dream, you have to wake me up. And then just at that second, she woke me up. You ever have that, like, how just you come awake at, like, the most perfect time? Like,
No.
Once when I was a kid, like, really young, for some reason, I was sleeping and getting ready to go, wake up to get ready to go to school. And for some reason, I was just sitting in my room, and then these 3 bears came in and flipped the light switch, and at that moment, I opened my eyes, and my light was on, and it was Mom flipping the light switch. Does that ever happen to you?
I've
Just perfect timing.
I've definitely heard of that happening to people, and I mean it's definitely something that comes up in movies all the time and that kind of thing. But no, that's never actually happened to me. I find that a lot of my dreams don't really, like, although they feel real, they don't often have a lot of
Bears?
real life or bears. Real life to connection to what is currently happening. Like sometimes the basic premise of the dream will be about things that are happening in my life. Like I had one when I was just moving into the place that I live now. It was very shortly after I had moved in. Or I think, actually it was about a week before. So I didn't really know anything about, like, you know, when you move into a new place, it's like, okay, well, how do I pay rent? What's the process here? Like, how do we handle groceries and stuff when you're living with roommates, that kind of thing, right?
New beginning.
Yeah, so I had a dream where I was trying to find out how we paid rent. And basically I was going around, it was a building that was very familiar that I've been in many times but couldn't place. And it was very slightly, I get that actually quite a bit. In fact, every dream that I've ever had has been in a place where I know where it is, but it's slightly different. So it's not exactly the same place, but I know it is.
I think I totally get your meaning.
But every dream has that of mine. Everyone has got a place that I know, but it's different. It's weird. And I'm running around trying to find my roommates and trying to just ask them, how do we pay rent? Is it cash? Do I send you an email transfer? What's going on? And they won't tell me. And I'm running around and I keep trying to find them and they keep sending me on a wild goose chase to find the other roommate. And this is my entire dream. And then they end up tickling me. And I'm like, stop tickling me. And then they keep tickling me. And I'm like, no, seriously, stop tickling me. And then they don't. And I get angry. And then they get angry with me for getting angry. And I woke up terrified because I'm like, oh my God, that's what living with them is going to be like. It wasn't. It was fine. But, yeah, no, as far as... do I ever wake up at that perfect moment? No, because there's never ever that much connection to what is happening actually while I'm sleeping compared to the dream.
Yeah, I guess with me it's a little bit of both. Like the other day, because we were recording drums the other day, and we got new drum skins, and so we went to Mikey's place, the drummer from Maroda, to his parents' house because they were away on a trip or whatever, and he had to make a house call or whatever. And I hadn't been there in years, but when you walk into a place you haven't been in a long time and it's like exactly the same, like you remember the layout, you remember the smell of the different rooms, you remember everything. And so there's things like that, but then sometimes you're in your house and you open the walk-in closet or a pantry or something, and there's like a jungle on the other side. it's I kind of get a bit of both.
I remember one dream that I used to have very, very frequently and very, very recurring when I was younger. Like back when we were kids and we would hang out all the time and we would play those games that were kind of like House but way better. So like we used to play Land Before Time baseball in our front yard.
I remember that.
And it wasn't actually baseball. We imagined everything.
That's
we
true.
We were standing there and we were throwing the ball back and forth to each other, but there was no ball, there was no mitts, there was nothing.
We always had great imaginations.
Yeah, it was awesome. So in my dream, and it was at our old house, where we grew up, where we spent like 9 years, Thompson Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
And I always remember the yard being very different. There's a bit of a slope. It's like the lawn has like 2 levels to it.
Yeah, there's like
a
the sidewalk, the lawn, and up and then over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always remember that the hill of grass was much steeper than it actually is. But anyway, in my dream, we're on this lower bit of grass that's on the same level as the sidewalk. We're playing Land Before Time baseball. And I look up the street, and there's a T-Rex. And it was very, very scary to me because I was very young. But realistically, it was basically like Rex in Toy Story, but like 8 times as big, and it's coming down, and we're freaking out. We're going, oh no, what are we going to do? And we run inside, and we try to warn the family, and we're running around and freaking out, and you kind of disappear, and I find Mum, and we go into my room, which was on the 2nd floor, kind of looking out over the backyard. The basic layout of our house, as I remember it, was you go in through the front door, and basically there's a circle going around, with the living room here, the kitchen here, and the hallway.
Oh, I
and
remember.
the bedroom.
I
And then
remember
there's a
every
staircase.
detail.
I'm mostly explaining it for them. And then there's a staircase going downstairs, and it was a very similar layout of around. And there was a freezer room, which was basically just a very cold room that we stored everything in. And that went out into the backyard that my bedroom was looking down on. So we're all freaking out. My mom and I go into my room, and this T-Rex comes into the house, somehow without breaking anything, even though it's like 8 times the size of the door. It starts rampaging, and when I'm 3 or 4, rampaging for a T-Rex is running around. So it does that, and it goes all the way around, and it comes out the back door, and me and my mom are in the room, and there's a boulder twice the size of the T-Rex sitting in my room, again, not breaking anything. I pick it up. I get it out of the window with no effort and not breaking anything. I place it on top of the T-Rex's head. It just kind of goes as the boulder falls on it, and then I wake up. Every time. I had that so many times when I was a kid. I still don't know what it means.
Well, some people get superstitious or spiritual, and they say that every dream has to mean something.
Mm-hmm.
I think that because I dream almost every night, very vivid, often lucid, and I agree that there are things that dreams can teach you about yourself and about the world in general, but I'm not one of those people that says, oh, I had the strangest dream last night, it must mean something, and it's trying to tell me something. I don't really buy that kind of stuff. But.
Do you find that there are often certain particular times that you will dream when you're in certain situations? Like, I find when I'm dreaming, and I have a dream that I remember and it's very lucid to me, it is either because I'm stressed, because I'm nervous about something, or because I'm sleeping at a time that I shouldn't be sleeping.
I don't know if there's specific times. One thing I have noticed, because I dream pretty much every night, if I wake up and I didn't dream, or if I don't remember anything, I'll be like, okay, that's weird, that's not a normal occurrence for me. So, yeah, I dream every night. Something I have noticed is that if I am about to have just like this massive dream where I feel like I've been awake for a week or whatever, and just like this crazy, crazy, intense, lucid dream, that when I go to sleep, it'll sometimes kind of hit me at once. Like when you're nodding off, and then something will, like, I'll startle myself, right, and just wake up like, like,
Yeah.
So That's one thing I've noticed, but I don't know if, at least not anymore, I don't think that there's specific emotions that, oh, I'm feeling this way and I'm going to have a big dream. So,
Right. Yeah. Well, that is all the time that we have here tonight for Thought Junkies, but thank you once again for joining us. We will post another video soon. Thought Junkies isn't really something that we schedule necessarily, just because sometimes it comes up when it comes up, right? But thank you for joining us. I'm sure we'll brush on lucid dreaming again at a different date, but we will see you soon. And thanks for hanging out.
And yeah, post in the comments if you have experience with lucid dreams. Also, if you may have had a similar experience to the one I did, which I call, the term I gave it is dream cycle or dream overlapping. So yeah, if you have any comments, questions, or anything like that, again, things that you might like us to talk about next time we do episode 3 of Thought Junkies, feel free to post in the comments.
And please do share our video with your friends. We do want to see what everybody thinks and see who's out there like us and that kind of thing. But thank you so much for coming out again, and we'll see you soon.
Bye, guys.